inside the bell jar. The wanderer's isolation is not exactly that of a person stranded in the desert. It is more as though we were inside a bell jar normal people do not even see, which effectively muffles communication and sometimes shuts it out entirely. At least that is the feeling we get. Finding out that you are some alien soul from another planet doesn't make things any better than before, really. Sure, it puts certain things to rest because they've been resolved, but it causes more problems than it seems to be worth. I know that when I found that I fit in perfectly with the signs that distinguish a wanderer, I felt more left out and isolated than ever for a long while. I had a lot of sad nights when I'd cry myself to sleep with the thought that I didn't belong anywhere. But it'll be the death of you if you keep putting yourself down. Being a wanderer means that you have to hope and trust yourself. Those of QO talk about this isolation. What is this knotting that indicates that the shuttle of spirit is not in good working order? The simplest term is fear. The spiritually ill entity has moved into an isolation, a place alone within which the entity is unforgiven and unnurtured. This isolation is crushing, and once entered is very difficult to see, much less to work with. Fear feeds upon itself in untended isolation. As Bo says, what I find is that my thoughts have a tendency to run wild in periods of extended loneliness. But to quiet them down, I repeat the serenity prayer, especially if they start going negative. And if you really look around, you aren't lonely. There are people everywhere, and you can find the ones you can relate to. I have also been known to, in periods of sadness, climb a tree and talk to it. Most times, the tree will really listen, and nature relieves you of your negative energy anyways. So, in a sense, to do so when you're not feeling so hot is a gift from you to nature, and nature will give back if you allow yourself to feel it. I love Bo's attitude and am a tree person myself with a long history of perceiving trees as intelligent and loving beings. When I was a toddler, I used to run around the yard hugging and talking to trees. So the family legend has it. Those of QO talk about this feeling of isolation. Each entity walks alone, and this feeling of isolation is a tremendous source of suffering among your peoples. And yet, when an entity stops looking for his feet and simply moves ahead, step by step, an unusual and unpredicted thing occurs. And that is that the steps of one who has stopped trying to see connections are more assured and livelier than those who are pressing with urgency against that envelope of blindness that surrounds the metaphysical self. Now understand, those as yet unawakened will be using their catalysts, their incoming sensations, as the outer world values and prioritizes things. The wanderer is using the same experiences, but from a metaphysical agenda. Those of Hatan put it another way. It might be said that each individual lives within a vacuum, that each isolates him or herself from the other selves that surround them, and in fear and misunderstanding of the isolation that has been created, each, as in a vacuum, contracts into themselves, as if unable to contact the energy with which to expand outward and establish a reunion with those among whom one lives. My friends, we are aware of the exhaustion that is characteristics of those who strive to overcome the spiritual vacuum. It is a great struggle to constantly extend oneself, holding oneself open and extended, so to speak, in one's attempt to establish and maintain contact with those other selves that compose the single unit that your race has the potential of becoming. As you know, some wanderers actually prefer the solitude. Throughout my life, accompanying the strong feeling of alienation was a powerful inner need to seek solitude. I have spent much of my life alone. I was the kid who sat at back, daydreaming, reading, not participating, hiding, dreading to be called upon for anything. Even during the years of family life, I spent much of the time alone, working on postgraduate papers, jogging alone, walking endless miles. So, for me, two dominating things appeared to have been working in me, despite the outward activities and interests. A deep-seated feeling of alienation and a need for solitude. A need to connect with the universe outside human habitation. Despite this oddly comforting thought, many wanderers feel very alone, very often. However, some wanderers write of realizing that they truly are no longer alone. You may begin to feel isolated and alone because you have no one with whom to communicate with on the level of your new reality. For this reason, I encourage you to find a like-minded forum, group, or individual with which you can associate and communicate to avoid this unnecessary and uncomfortable situation. As you have access to the internet, finding such a group is fairly easy. If not by the internet, finding a group or individual and communication on a regular basis can be more difficult, but is necessary, in my opinion. Networking and connecting with others is very important. There is a tremendous desire on the part of many wanderers to meet others of like mind. I talk with them every day. These days, meeting others of like mind is easier to do because of the resources on the internet. I have seen good friendships start on the internet and certainly have met hundreds of fascinating people that way through the years. If you are lonely and feeling blue, by all means, start with a website such as ours, www.llresearch.org, and follow the links. you will find interesting and varied company. And with that said, praise be our one infinite Creator. We thank you, one infinite Creator, for your love. We thank you, one infinite Creator, for your light. All is one. Blessings be, my sisters and brothers. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I love you.